Nice to meet you, man. I'm Kevin McCarthy. Pleasure to meet you.
I'm Jhostin. Nice to meet you.
Thank you. And how did this work out? How did we end up doing this interview together?
Well, I put in a request, a video. I sent it to the Miss DeCipio, the one who was in charge of this, and I got chosen.
That's awesome. I love Miss DeCipio. So, hello, you're awesome.
So, how do you prefer me calling you, Mr. McCarthy?
Kevin. Oh, Kevin's fine. Yeah.
Kevin. Okay. Let's start with the questions.
Sure.
Kevin. Kevin. What led you the entertainment route?
It's interesting. I grew up loving films, so films were always something that I was genuinely just in love with. 8 years old, I saw Terminator 2 Judgment Day. It changed my life, and I just knew I wanted to be involved in films somehow. Entertainment reporting was kind of not accidental, but I kind of fell into it because of my love for films. It was more about me just talking about films with my friends, and then I noticed that if I could talk about films with my friends the way I do, if I could do that on TV or do it on the radio, could that actually work? And yeah, it's been crazy. Like my whole particular situation here is I get to meet and interview my cinematic heroes, and there's just something so special about that, and so crazy about sitting in a room with a director that I've loved or grown up with my entire life. And so entertainment journalism is what gave me the opportunity to basically have these conversations with filmmakers and directors and actors that I've loved, and I've learned so much about movies through these interviews. It's actually enhanced my viewing experience as an interviewer and also as an audience member. But then when I review films for the show, I try to incorporate bits from the interviews that I learn into the review so it can help enhance the experience for the viewer.
Awesome. That's a good movie, by the way. Seen it a lot of
times.
Oh yeah. Who was your biggest inspiration in your career?
Biggest inspiration in my career, there's two. So Arch Campbell, who's a movie reviewer who worked in the DC area for many, many years. He actually took me under his wing. I met him at earlier press screenings when I first started out. I had no credentials. I had no, I wasn't working on anywhere full time except for a sales job. And Arch would let me sit by him. I'd pick his brain. I'd get his advice on how to break into the business. I mean, I was doing movie reviews on the station, but I wasn't full time. And he'd worked in TV for a long time. So he was kind of helping me step in that direction. And then Tony Perkins, who was working on Fox 5 on the morning show prior to me taking the job there, came into the radio show I was working on one day and did a segment about the radio show. And I just kind of asked him if I could be on TV and do movie reviews. So Tony then got me the audition to work at Fox 5, and then even though I was still freelancing, he would meet with me every couple months, and we'd go to lunch together, and he would literally help me find a way to break into the job. So those are the two people, and plus my parents, obviously, and my friends, and my family, my wife, Lauren. So there's a lot of people, but those two professionally were probably the biggest.
That's great. Awesome. So I heard you're a big movie fan. You love movies and stuff.
Yeah.
What do you feel was the best movie released this past year, 2019?
Yeah, my favorite movie last year, what was yours, out of curiosity?
Well, of course, The Joker.
It was Joker? Yeah, Joker was amazing. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood was my number one.
Good.
You like that?
Yeah.
Are you a Quentin Tarantino fan?
Yeah.
That movie just blew my mind. But it's funny, I didn't love the film the first time I saw it. I liked it a lot. It was just a very different pacing for Quentin Tarantino. Now I've seen it, I think, 9 times, and I watch it all the time. I just love I love living in that world with those characters, and that movie nobody does soundtrack like Quentin Tarantino, and he still shoots on film. He's still striking film prints. I saw it in 70 millimeter, and it was like one of the most incredible experiences I've had in a long time. I love digital's great, but I just love the way movies look with film, So I think Quentin's trying to preserve that theatrical experience. So Hollywood was really kind of it all came together. It's like a love letter to LA, a love letter to cinema and television.
Okay, awesome. And one movie that you think might win the picture for the Oscars as Best Picture,
It's going to come down to 1917 or Parasite. I'm hoping that Hollywood will win, but 1917 is it's one continuous shot during a World War I film, even though it's not really one shot. It's like 50 shots or so stitched together. But it is, that movie is just very appealing to a lot of mass audiences. People were loving the story. I think that won the PGA, which is the Producers Guild of America, which is actually a big indicator of what's going to win the Oscar. What do you think is going to win?
Well,
what do you want? You want Joker to win?
Hopefully Joker, but
Phoenix will win though.
Yeah,
he'll win.
Yeah, honestly, but I felt like 1917 was a good movie too.
Yeah, it was 1917 is a very good movie. I just don't think it's Best Picture. But that being said, Best Picture Oscars it's a preferential ballot. So when they vote for the Oscars, it's really kind of comes down to the movie that is in the middle, that everyone just equally likes. I think 1917 has that ability to be like an equally loved film.
Have you ever made you know how celebrities sometimes you say a question, they walk away, they get uncomfortable. Have you ever made a celebrity uncomfortable?
No, I mean, no. It's interesting. Like there are like I'm not gonna walk into a room and ask somebody about like a friend, a family member who passed away or something like that. I try to avoid that type of stuff. Yeah, I mean, I've had interviews where like a question maybe came out wrong, where an actor was like, "What?" and then I had to like course correct it. But I've never had anybody leave an interview, thankfully.
So I've seen you interviewed The Rock. Is there a possibility I can meet him?
The Rock, he's such a nice guy. If you ever have a chance to meet him, he will give you 100% of his attention. He's a super good dude, and he just genuinely loves people. And he has this great quote where he says, like, it's nice to be important, but it's more important to be nice. And I just love that he's kind of kept that up for a long time. But yeah, man, if he's ever in the area and I'm somehow with him at that moment, and you walk by, of course, just come on over.
Of course, yeah. So. You've met famous people. Is it? Have you ever felt like that like genuine feel inside of them, like they're just talking to a normal person?
Oh yeah. I mean, I've had a lot of them. I feel like that. Like, especially if I'm coming at it from a technical filmmaking angle, they appreciate the love for cinema, so that you can kind of get them on a more human level. Because actors have their guards up in interviews. They're going to be asked everything about who they're dating and all that kind of stuff, and that's just not my thing personally. So I think they appreciate that it's more of a filmmaking discussion and more of a, I relate things to their real lives, but do it through the movie themes. So that's kind of how I handle it.
So you critique movies too. Have you ever had an actor in the main movie that you critique come up to you and like not like your response or anything?
I interviewed. There was one time I was reviewing a film called The Monuments Men with George Clooney, and I wasn't supposed to interview George Clooney the next day, but I was interviewing the whole cast. And when I left the film that night, I told the publicist that I thought the film was just, it was fine. It was slow. I didn't particularly care for the story. I thought the actors were great. I just didn't think the weight of the story came through the film. And then the next day, I somehow worked my way into interviewing George Clooney, and right before I walked into the room, his publicist pulled me aside and said, "Just so you know, George Clooney knows you don't like his movie. So just know that going in." I'm like, "Well, why would you tell me that before I walk in the room to interview George Clooney for the first time?"
Of course.
And so I walk in, and I don't bring it up, and we have a great two adults just talking about movies and filmmaking. We take a picture together afterwards. It was never mentioned. I came back home, aired the interview, gave the movie a bad review, and that was it. It was very nerve-wracking, to be honest, walking into a room knowing that Clooney knew I didn't like his film. But you got to keep the ethical reviews. You have to be ethical in what you say, and because people can see through that.
Yeah. So we know you're into movies a lot. Is there anything else that you really love aside from movies and stuff?
Yeah, so I play a lot of guitar. I'm a big heavy metal music fan, so I listen to a lot, and people would be surprised how much stuff I listen to. I listen to some pretty hardcore metal, but I like to play guitar. I'm a huge guitar fanatic. I love music, love vinyl. My wife and I have like a vinyl collection. I love collecting records and listening to records, and I mean, what about you? What's something you're passionate about besides movies?
I really love hip hop in general. I love rock too, Nirvana. That's one of my favorite groups.
Who do you like in hip hop right now?
Hip hop, I believe J. Cole. J. Cole is probably one.
Like Kendrick?
Yeah, Kendrick.
He's like I love Kendrick. I'm actually a huge hip hop fan too. Not as much more as a metalhead, but my wife and I love Kendrick. We just saw him live. He was great.
Yeah. So those were the questions.
Cool, man. Well, I appreciate it. And what's your favorite movie of all time?
Mine's it would have to be Scarface.
Really? Why Scarface?
I just like the criminality that you be with him. Like first you be like on his side, and then when everything goes bad, he just like you on the other people's side. So that's one thing that I really liked about that movie.
That's awesome, man. Well, nice meeting you. Thank you for the questions. They're really great questions. I appreciate you taking the time to talk to me. Thanks, man.
I feel great. I feel like it was an awesome opportunity to meet someone like him and make him and ask him my questions. I learned that he is a very interesting person. He loves movies, and I feel like we both have that in common. I sent it in an email to Ms. DeCipio, or a video of me why I wanted to interview him and why I felt like I was the best candidate.